let people understand, particularly the economic side of the American society right now. And I don't know if Clay wants to jump in, but I know he's got a lot of thoughts. We have talked about, we've talked about inflation, but we get into the details of that. And Clay, I don't know if you want to offer something there, because there's some historical components, but there's also some economic issues.
Well, I think Dave, if America was all talking about Executive Order 14067 today, let's just say that the headline on Fox News, Newsmax, One America, CNN, NBC, ABC, if every podcaster was talking about Executive Order 14067, I think every American would be up in arms. But the average American is not talking about Executive Order 14067, but we are talking about China circling Taiwan and conducting drills. And I don't know, because I've never met Nancy Pelosi. I don't know what her plan was or what her plan isn't. But I do know, and I want to play this brief little clip here, is I do know, and I want everyone to write this down and assume that I'm making this up, okay? I do know that Joe Biden signed Executive Order 14067 on March 9th, 2022. And after I play this clip, if I've said anything incorrectly, please feel free to interject General Flynn on this. But by signing this executive order on March 9th of 2022, Joe Biden has essentially moved America into the Chinese social credit score system by signing a document that nobody's talking about. So I'm going to hit play here, and this is just so we can tee it up here. This is Joe Rogan is doing an interview, and in this interview, he's discussing this technology and how it works, and I'll kind of pause to break it down. But let me just play this brief little 1-minute clip here.
Do you feel like you're sounding the alarm for people that don't understand what the is going on?
So here, I'll pull it up for you here, yeah? So there's the video.
Yeah.
I don't know if your camera can see that, but
no.
There's the video. There's him speaking about it.
The G7 is launching.
Now, this is Chancellor Rishi Sunak. He's a member of the Parliament of the United Kingdom, and he's the one speaking here. So let me hit play.
I don't know if your camera can see that, but
no.
There's the video. There's him speaking about it.
The G7 is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote that could be used alongside physical notes and coins. Unlike most of the digital money people use daily today, it would be issued directly by a central bank, like the Bank of England in the UK.
Right, so that's the guy who runs our economy in the UK. His name's the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
So this is Mahid Usman Nawaz, an investigative journalist who's speaking right here.
And here is the article. Bank of England tells ministers to intervene on digital currency programming. Yeah. And here's a quote from the article. This is in the Telegraph, the one he pulled up, but it was behind a paywall. So I'll just read the quote. Digital cash could be programmed to ensure it is only spent on essentials or goods which an employer or government deems to be sensible.
Holy.
I'm going to take it one step further for you, Joe, right? So the vaccine passport infrastructure is in place. But now we know that the vaccine doesn't stop infection or transmission, but the checkpoint Charlie exists everywhere. They bring in digital banking, central banking digital currencies. You've got a scenario now that you're checking in and out everywhere you go using vouchers that are programmed, and you can only spend where you're told you can spend them. There's another word for that, man. That's called the Chinese social credit system.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here, Dave, is I'm seeing that the Chinese recognized, and General Flynn could speak to this from a military perspective, they recognized that defeating the American people militarily would not be possible. So the best way to defeat us would be to find some very corrupt individuals who they could buy using fiat currency. And so the CCP has been buying the loyalty of Americans willing to sell out their country in exchange for fiat currency. And so now what has happened is now Joe Biden has signed this executive order 14067. This is such a big order that Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that so many of my fellow entrepreneurs often quote, 12 of his last 15 shows have been about this subject. He signs this. It's going into effect on December 13th. And now we understand why 80,000 IRS agents were just hired. Now we understand why they were given weapons. Now we understand why there's this raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago home and why there's this acceleration of corruption. And I just think right now that the CCP, which is in cahoots with Klaus Schwab, and this is not my opinion, Klaus Schwab has done a press conference with the head of China. So they're on video together doing a Zoom presentation together, announcing that this is the year of the tiger and that this is the year they have to add the wings to the dragon. And so Klaus Schwab and the CCP are working right now to implement this great reset. And most people are just simply not talking about Executive Order 14067 because of the theater going on around Taiwan and other distractions is what I would describe them as.
So, I mean, we could talk about the infiltration here because, I mean, I just went to the pit, and at the pit, they stumbled upon this database, a database that collected 1.8 million Americans' information. I mean, this is how many kids you have, all this information. They also collected the data on who is a poll worker, and the voting systems went through this server that was in Wuhan. It's funny, that's where the pandemic came from, too. Very interesting. And we're starting to see the infiltration. So what you're saying is if the CCP blackmailed or paid off certain individuals, they probably could have paid certain individuals in the election system to where they would be able to cheat in the election system to remove Trump. I mean, I think this is what we're seeing. General Flynn, do you see the infiltration?
Yeah, let me jump on that real quick, if you don't mind, Dave, because I think this is number one, and I'm just going to summarize briefly what I think we learned from the True to the Vote folks in this last weekend. Essentially, and I see it as a passive collection system, but there's probably some activity that they are probing, surveilling, conducting electronic reconnaissance of all of our various governmental systems, business, banking, etc. From this, from what we learned or what True to the Vote learned in their data collection. Wuhan was sort of the headquarters of where it was happening. They were tied into, I understand, a company in Michigan called Konnech.
Yes.
Konnech, Konnech. And from that company, they were able to, I think it's like 1.8 million records, right? And it goes all the way down to the records of not just the individual, but also their families and every piece of data about them. That's the passive part, meaning they're just pulling something back and they're surveilling. The reconnaissance part is what I'm more concerned about. Was there the so what? The answer to the so what from this weekend, and this is because this is blowing up all over the internet right now. The answer that I want from the so what is: did they actively change or conduct some type of active engagement during the 2020 election? Because we know from 2000 Mules, etc. But I want to take this back to what is China doing in our system, right? Not just electronic warfare, cyber warfare, informational warfare. They are clearly involved in education or in economic warfare. That is part of their unrestricted warfare doctrine, which goes back over 20 years, 25 years. Unrestricted warfare. You can look it up online. One of the things I want to take to this executive order, because the mainstream Americans now need to be talking about this executive order 14067. And I want to bring your attention to section 4 of it, because it's very, very important. And if you haven't pulled it up, I'll just read the title: Policy and Actions Related to United States Central Bank Digital Currencies. And then it goes on, and it's very detailed. It's very detailed. It essentially is starting to talk about this shift to a digital currency. And Clay is a master at this in terms of when we created when was the Federal Reserve created? When did certain events happen? And they go back to the early 1970s. And I'll let him touch on that here in a second. But this shift to a digital currency is actually this executive order, and I try to read the majority of executive orders. If not read them in total, I will certainly scan them to where I get a sufficient understanding of what it's about. This is one of the more frightening executive orders that I've seen in my lifetime. And why? Because the U.S. dollar is the currency of choice around the world and always has been. Mainly in our lifetime, right? I mean, certainly since the late 60s, actually since post World War II, but it really kicked into high gear in the late 60s, 70s, and on up till now. Now we're talking about a shift by this government, by our government, by this White House, to this a form of digital currency. So what does that mean? And I think we have to be very concerned about a fake media that's out there that's going to tout this as something that's great for us, when actually what this is going to do is this is going to align us with this group out of the World Economic Forum. This is going to align us with all of these global institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and it's going to align us with the nation states, communist countries like China. And it's as was stated in the Joe Rogan piece there. So I'll throw it to Clay to just talk a little bit about that, because this is a very frightening time, and there's a date on this. One other last piece, there's a date on this, and I think it's what, Clay, the 13th of December.
December 13th. And Dave, I want to give you credit for this. Your show X22 was one of the first shows banned from podcasts, banned from YouTube. So great job, Dave. You're
Thank
one
you
of the
very
first
much.
See persecution. No, I mean, this is you are legendary for doing this, and I just want people to understand this for a second, okay? So President Trump banned TikTok during his time as president. What did Biden do? One of Biden's first things he did was do what? He decided to drop the ban on TikTok, which is a company that is controlled by China, that put little pieces of code on your phone, which essentially turned your phone into a research device. I mean, nobody for the CCP, nobody would say, yeah, let's put a microphone in my house so the CCP can spy on me. Yeah, let's put a chip in my phone so the CCP can see what I type and what I search. Well, that's what you do when you download the TikTok app. So Biden said, yeah, let's go ahead and bring that back. Then Trump signed a ban. He's banning Huawei, the telecom equipment manufacturer. Trump banned that. And it appears as though the Biden administration is friendly with that. So you're seeing this infiltration. If we just get into a little history here, you say, well, what is money? Well, money is a medium of exchange. So up until 1971, America had this thing called the gold standard. And then a guy by the name of Henry Kissinger whispered in the ear of Richard Nixon and said, hey, you should get off the gold standard. And so guess what Richard Nixon did in 1971? He got us off the gold standard. Well, in 1971, Henry Kissinger, who was a professor at Harvard for Klaus Schwab, who was born in 1938, who had parents that were oddly close to Adolf Hitler. Klaus Schwab's parents managed a factory that was praised by Adolf Hitler. So Klaus Schwab, Henry Kissinger whispers in his ear and says, hey, you should start the World Economic Forum. So he starts at 1971. In 1971, America began sacrificing babies to Baal. I know that's a little bit weird for some listeners out there, but Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 35, America began sacrificing babies, aka abortion, in 1971. In 1971, check this out. Rules for Radicals was written and dedicated to Lucifer. This is how the book starts. It's how it starts. It says, lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from all our legends, mythology, and history. The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer. This book was written in 1971. It's often quoted by Obama and Hillary Clinton. And in 1971, the Dark Side comic series came out. Dark, D-A-R-K, S-E-I-D. This all came out in 1971. And they've been working on this plan. And if you look at the World Economic Forum logo, their logo is 666. Look at it, folks. The World Economic Forum, their logo is 666. The logo of CERN is 666. The Google Chrome logo is 666. So you're seeing there's a satanic Luciferian globalist organization that's trying to take over America. And what they have to do right now is they have to destroy the value of the dollar and move us into their new system. And so right now, the mainstream media, Dave, they're reporting that the inflation rate is 9.1%. I challenge everyone listening right now. Think about the things you really buy, the gas you really buy, the food you really buy, the lumber you actually buy. Has anything gone up just 9.1%? No, the actual inflation rate's got to be in the mid 30s. So what's happening now is these countries are moving away from the U.S. dollar. Russia, China, India, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Zimbabwe. That's Russia, China, India, Saudi Arabia, and Zimbabwe are all moving away from the U.S. dollar. And on December 13th, if nothing is done, Executive Order 14067 will switch us into a new kind of currency that America has not ever dealt with before. And I have a little 30-second sound clip I want to play to demonstrate this. The sound clip comes from France 24, and they're reporting how the China social credit score system works. Listen to this audio. This is from France 24. This is their little intro music. Here we go.
They're constantly monitored by facial recognition cameras that are able to instantly put a face to a name. Now the Chinese are also ranked, given a mark out of a possible 950 points. A score in the 700s is considered good. Around the 500 mark is not. For now, the number is a sort of bank credit rating, keeping track of everyone's spending habits.
I think being ranked is a good thing. A society has to have rules.
They're interviewing their citizens.
It forces us to be well behaved.
It may seem scary, but it's just like that here. We're used to it. And anyway, we don't have a choice.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Anyway, we don't have a choice. So what's happening is that the final thing that China needs to do to take away our freedoms is we need to lose the ability to buy and or sell. So your show was removed, Dave, from virtually all mainstream social media because you shared the truth. Now imagine if everybody had their money frozen for 7 days or 14 days or forever because of your beliefs. That's what the social credit score system is, and that's what Joe Biden signed with Executive Order 14067. And that's why you see these IRS agents that just got hired, 80,000 of them. And that's why you just saw the raid on Mar-a-Lago.
87,000 armed thugs.
That's what I call them. I call them thugs. Same as you.
And Dave, I'll just say this before we go back to you. I was doing an interview with Eric Trump, and everybody needs to hear this interview. Donna Clement, who is the daughter of the late great prophet Kim Clement, booked an interview for Eric Trump and I to do this interview. So we're doing the interview. And Eric is a great guy, very measured, very sharp, one of the best people I've met in the movement. I mean, just a great guy. I mean,
and nice. I mean, just a generally nice guy.
He is humble. I mean, he's great.
Yep.
So we're doing this interview, and there was something in his eye that looked very determined, unlike something I've ever seen before. Determined, not panicked, but determined. And so we got off the show. We wrapped up the show, and I just said, "Hey, brother, my wife and I have been praying for you. If you need anything, let me know." And he just said, "Hey, by the way, right before we hopped on the show, I found out that my dad's home in Mar-a-Lago was being raided by the FBI. And what's happening, Dave, is they're trying to find anything, plant anything, do anything possible to discredit and to disqualify President Donald J. Trump from running to become the 47th president of the United States, because they recognize that everything they're doing right now is waking up more and more patriots. I mean, when you put the inflation rate in the 30s, people who are moderates are now becoming outspoken, diehard Republicans. You're seeing patriots and libertarians come out in droves. You're seeing people like Liz Cheney losing. You're seeing Carrie Lake winning. You're just seeing this energy happening at these Reawaken America tour events. We are seeing people that have told me, I have never been to a political event in my entire life. And they're getting involved, and General Flynn is leading the charge, and I'm seeing it happen. But that's why these 87,000 new armed IRS thugs have been hired. That's why the Mar-a-Lago raid happened. It's all because they're in the process of implementing Executive Order 14067. And if we don't stop it, we're headed into some rough times. And I really do believe we can stop it if we put enough pressure on the elected officials, because I simply cannot believe that every American elected official is okay with moving into a Chinese social credit score system, no matter how corrupt they are.